Thank God we finally have something positive to talk about here on the channel. We spend a lot of time calling out the woke nonsense. That's actually all we've done, especially over the past couple of weeks with the Olympics. There was so much of it, it was impossible to miss. Sometimes I just want to find something positive to bring to you guys. It's hard to do nowadays, but I finally did. It's not always good to keep bringing up negativity. Although, let's be perfectly honest here. In most cases, the negative stories are much more entertaining and interesting than the positive stories. It's just human nature. We like to watch the train wreck. But I wanted to take a few minutes today to mention something positive coming out of the NBA. For the past year, the NBA has been number one on my list of leagues that I attack for being woke. It could be passed over here in the next couple of weeks by the NFL, but as of right now, the NBA is still number one, still top of the list. Becky Hammon, she was in the running for several head coaching jobs this offseason. She was one of the top candidates in Portland before the Blazers gave the job to Chauncey Billups. Becky Hammon will end up as an NBA head coach one day, probably one day soon as next year. She's qualified, she really is. She has been an assistant coach under Gregg Popovich in San Antonio for the last 8 years. When he was ejected from a game back in December, Becky Hammon became the first woman to coach an NBA game. A couple of weeks ago, wokers everywhere were just outraged that Becky Hammon was passed over by the Blazers and the rest of the NBA. It's unfair. The NBA must give Becky Hammon a head coaching job. We have to be inclusive to women. The Blazers not hiring her had nothing to do with her being a woman. They just felt Chauncey Billups was a better fit. If I were Becky Hammon, I wouldn't have wanted the Blazers job anyway. Looks like Dame Lillard is unhappy, wants out of town. Once that happens, the Blazers are going to go back to being a basement dweller. And that is your worst nightmare as a rookie head coach. Your star player leaving town. Once the team starts losing, guess who's going to eventually take the blame? You, the rookie head coach. So the Wokers, they were all pissed off a couple of weeks ago that Becky Hammon was passed over for head coaching jobs. But one person who was not pissed off about it was Becky Hammon. Matter of fact, not only is she not upset about it, she doesn't want to be hired based on her gender alone. She gave an interview to the Associated Press yesterday, and she told them that she doesn't want to be hired just to check a box. Translation: don't hire me to promote your woke agenda. Becky Hammon wants to be hired based off her qualifications, her skills for being the best fit for the job. She said the worst thing you could do for her is hire her based off of her gender. Well, damn! What a novel concept. Hiring a head coach based off their qualifications, based off their skill sets, instead of their race and gender. Isn't it refreshing to have someone involved in the NBA speak some common sense? It has been so long since we've had a story coming out of the NBA that made sense, that was logical. So many of the decisions in the NBA the last 12 to 18 months have been based off of overreaction and emotion instead of logic. Becky Hammon actually gets it. She understands. Every time a coaching candidate that checks a box for the woke agenda gets passed over for a position, they lose their minds. There are only 30 coaching jobs in the NBA. Of those 30 jobs, only 4, maybe 5 are open every offseason. The competition for these jobs is high. Just take the job in Portland, for example. Sure, Becky Hammon has 8 years of experience with the Spurs, but Chauncey Billups had a long NBA career. Won a championship in Detroit. He was the point guard on a championship team, which is basically like being the head coach on the court. He's got a year of coaching experience with the Clippers, last year as an assistant. Simply put, Chauncey Billups is more qualified than Becky Hammon. Now, when Becky Hammon does eventually get a head coaching job, I'm going to feel sorry for her. I really am. The pressure on her to succeed is going to be immense. Anytime you're the first person to do something, first woman head coach, first black head coach, the pressure is on you to succeed. She told the Associated Press that she hopes to see the day that women are regularly being interviewed for head coaching positions in the NBA. I'll be honest, I don't know about that. I have my doubts. I have my doubts about Becky Hammon too. Yes, she's qualified. Yes, she knows basketball. My concerns with her deal with the locker room and whether or not grown men in the NBA are going to listen and respect a woman as their head coach. Now, that might not be a popular thing to say, but it's reality. It's a proven fact. Men act differently around women. There are a lot of things said in locker rooms by dudes that wouldn't be deemed acceptable if a woman was in the locker room. With a woman head coach, the entire dynamic of the locker room changes. Even though I was happy to see Becky Hammon come out and say that she doesn't want to check a woke box to become an NBA head coach, I still wonder if women head coaches really belong in the NBA. Now, that might sound bad to say out loud, but let's be real here for a minute. The NBA is a male-dominated league. Women will never be allowed to play. Well, I say that now, but you never know. It's 2021. Adam Silver, he might decide to follow the Olympics and allow trans women to compete against LeBron James one day. But I don't know how I feel about all this mixing women and men in sports. I don't like it. I know how I feel. I don't like it. It is okay for men to have their thing and women to have their thing. Isn't that the whole reason the WNBA exists? Isn't that why they started it? So women have a league to play basketball and make money? Where does this go next? Mixing women and male-dominated leagues. Where's it go next? Is there going to be a push in the NFL for women to become head coaches? How the hell's that going to work? Besides the lingerie football league, there is not another real football league for women. Call me a sexist, call me a misogynist, I don't care. I'm not sold on the idea of women head coaches in the NBA. I'm glad Becky Hammon wants to be hired on her merits instead of her gender, and that we finally had some type of anti-woke news coming out of the NBA. But I don't think this concept of a women head coach is going to work. And I do believe that's the reason a lot of teams are passing on Becky Hammon. Now, they'll never admit that, of course, but I think that's one of the main reasons. All right, let me know what you think. First, let me know what you think of Becky Hammon publicly saying that she doesn't want to check a woke box to get an NBA head coaching job. And number two, do you think a woman head coach will work in the NBA or the NFL? Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.